we decided to make a show about our own show. Woo. Why don't you kick us off, Kostya? What does 100 episodes mean to you?
I was talking to someone recently about doing 100 episodes, and I feel like it takes a while to get into the rhythm of a podcast. And I feel like we've only found our rhythm just recently, like maybe this year, even though we've been doing it for a couple of years now. Although I was surprised that we got to episode 100. Actually, I feel like, number one, a lot of podcasts, they don't make it to 100, and also it really hasn't felt like, I think a really fun show would be for us to try and name all 100 episodes, because I don't think we'd be able to do it. I think we'd maybe get 50, honestly. I think it'd actually be really hard to
I just
name
read over the
all of
list
them.
today, so
Yeah.
I would do a lot better than yesterday.
Yeah, going through the list, I was like surprised. I was like, wow, we really have done a lot of episodes. And we're currently thinking about doing episodes that we've already done. Like, we were going to do an episode about like studying openings and online blitz, and we already did episodes on those two topics.
Yeah. Jesse and I are old, dude. Every time we come up with an episode topic, I'm like, I better check if we haven't already done that.
No, but we got to talk. That was now the openings and blitz is now the basis of a new convo because of Ben Johnson's new book. Oh, you got to revisit that one.
We can revisit the topic, but at least, not acknowledge that we did an episode where we probably addressed like all the same. I mean, I'm sure I know why we did an episode on online blitz back in the days, because we wanted to talk if it's good about improvement. But I think it really takes time, to figure it out. I think we're still actually very new when listening to like other podcasts that have maybe done like hundreds and hundreds of episodes. And it honestly feels like we've done maybe like 20 or 30 episodes. Like, that's what it feels like. And of course we've done way more, but yeah, it's awesome to get here. The podcast has definitely been the most consistent thing, because I think we started year one, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And
August 2020. So you can see that in about 160 weeks, we did about 100 episodes.
And also, like, in terms of when the dojo started, it's like really about 3 years now, where the inception came.
3 years. So that's not too bad. We always said we wanted to do one episode a week, but it was pretty good. And it's interesting to see how the dojo has grown while we've been doing the podcast. I think probably not many people know of just the podcast and not what we're doing like on Twitch and with the training program and stuff. But it's interesting to kind of see how the podcast has definitely changed over time.
Yeah. I mean, my thought is it's really important and valuable to do some things consistently. So I'm, mildly proud and satisfied of us for plowing through with the podcast. And it, if we had to pick something to be the show that we did the most times, I think we were probably all in agreement that it'd be the podcast, even though it's very different from everything else we do. But it's somehow that the fact that it's different from all the chess teaching, all the game analysis, all the X's and O's. I think that's what made it like, okay, but we have to make sure we keep this piece of what we do as well.
Yeah, it's also been a cool thing for us to just all have a moment to hang out. And for a lot of those times we did Endgame Sensei right after. And that's been just harder to organize with time constraints. I think when I think about podcasts, like when they compare ourselves to other podcasts, like most other podcasts are some person, a moderator, who has guests on, right? And then they kind of bounce their stuff off that guest. Some more actively than others. Some of the guests, some of the moderators are passive. There's a couple that are like ours. And I think what's cool about ours is, like, if you listen to it, people have, you watch the YouTube comments, people have certain, like, they know kind of where we're coming from. And the comment will be like, oh, Kraai, saying the same stuff again. So they know where each of us are coming from. Maybe they have a favorite. They kind of know what the groove of the conversation is, even though they might not know what we're saying on each whatever topic it is we're talking on, right? And so there's a couple other podcasts out there. Me and Kostya sometimes listen to this one where it's three dudes talking about fitness. And yeah, that's a similar thing where the audience can kind of know a little bit about those people, and then they see them talking about a variety of things. And so it's a little bit like a friends bouncing idea off each other rather than more traditional podcasts, I think, whereas, the moderator talking to some dude. For example, friend of the dojo, James Altucher, he's doing like 3 podcasts a week, just talking to some dude. Totally different than the dynamic that we have going on here,
Yeah. He's a very good interviewer. Also, it just recently dawned on me that many people don't even know that this is a podcast because they watch this show on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And I speak to a lot of people. I see them online. They're like, "Oh yeah, I didn't know you guys were on Spotify." And it's like we're on the episode 85. So yeah, just a brief reminder: if you're watching on YouTube, this is a real podcast. It is uploaded to podcast apps, and you can download and rate it there. Please do rate it because that really helps us with the listings and stuff.
And you can ask Alexa to play it for you while you're doing your dishes. That's something I figured out.
Wow, that's true. That's true. Amazing. Cool. So we are going to be ranking our favorite episodes as we started doing towards the second half in our podcast streak, and we've each got five favorite episodes that we're going to get to. All right, I got our list up.
Nice.
And we're just gonna see if there are any overlaps. I think there might be some, but we'll see.
We'll have some, yeah.
And yeah, actually, real quick, this was kind of hard to pick our favorites because there's a ton of episodes, and it was actually hard to remember. Like I remember so many like great moments, and I have no idea what episode they happened in, and I'm just like, oh no, just gone. Maybe hopefully we'll find them one day. But I would truly actually love to hear from the fans on this one because they probably know better. So if you have favorite episodes or favorite moments, then let us, if you're watching on YouTube, let us know, like YouTube comments. If you're watching on Twitter, let us know on Twitter. I would actually really love to know what the people think is the best episode. Maybe we'll do like a poll or something at some point if there's some clear favorites that people have, or people could upvote on YouTube. I'm sure we'll find a way.
Yeah, that would be lovely. That would be lovely to know. I'm sure one thing we could also do is we could look in the YouTube stats and just see which episode has the most thumbs up. That could be one cool thing to see, especially if we prepared even more. But, rewatching 100 episodes was a lot of preparation already.
Rewatching, okay. All right, David, why don't you start us off then? Give us your number 5.
All right. My number 5. And this one is slightly a stand-in for some other ones. Like you said, Kostya, sometimes there's great moments. You don't know exactly where they're from. I think even while I was watching one of them, there was something where it's like, Jesse was so right predicting Magnus would quit the world championship a year in advance. And you were in the comments like, what's the timestamp? I want the clip of that even in the episode. But this one for me is Chess Dojo Talks Magnus. And one of my favorite, just from a pure enjoyment. Okay, my choices are going to maybe be stupid to you and to everybody else, but for me, they're highly personal taste kind of things. It's just my gut enjoyment of stuff, kind of. And the recurring segments where Jesse says, "Hey Magnus, buddy," and then goes into some kind of rant, have been really. I mean, I'm sitting here sometimes trying not to crack up on stream, sometimes just cracking up on stream. I love it. And, but I picked that episode in particular also because I think that it also does something else that I like in my Dojo Talks, which is it talks about something a little bit fundamental and eternal, right? It's addressing the questions of what does the greatest chess player of an era owe to chess, and what does chess owe to that player? And, what are their responsibilities and how do we think about and interact with that person, which I think there's some really cool, interesting questions there. So that's one of my favorite episodes. I put it number 5 for now.
Cool. That's very interesting because that was also my number 5 pick.
Whoa!
But actually for the same reason, actually, I just want to say like one of my favorite recurring segments now has been Jesse directing his rant towards Magnus, not towards one of us, and telling Magnus to step it up, get in shape, play the world championship, try to enjoy classical chess again, even though he's sick and tired of like beating everyone all the time. It's like too much opening prep. That actually became like a real, like there were definitely quite a few people that were not happy with Jesse, like directing Magnus or telling Magnus like what he should do. I mean, it's like, I don't know. For me, that's definitely been a treat. We've done a couple episodes. So we did Dojo Talks Magnus, but we also talked a lot about him when he dropped out of the Singfield Cup last year. And then I think there was another episode when he like officially gave up the World Championship. So I think that it's like a couple of these in our series.
Yeah. And Kostya, you might be onto something there. Maybe part of our enjoyment of it is the relief that for a moment Jesse's aiming at someone other than us.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? I also just want to say I'm probably not. I don't know. You guys can do whatever you want. I'm not going to rank the Hikaru episode because that was literally episode 99, and I suffer greatly from recency bias. So I'm just like, that was a really good episode, but it's very hard to rank it because it just happened so soon. But that was obviously a fantastic one.
Yeah. Fair enough. Oh no, Jesse, audio.
Thank you. I want to say that one thing I've really enjoyed about the podcast, it doesn't really make it onto my list, but something I've really looked forward to about it is it gave us the opportunity to talk not just about chess, but like world events, geopolitics, gender issues, mind issues, all these things that just important to human life in general that affect the chess world. And you have to think about when you talk about the chess world. And so although none of those specifically made my list, I was still like, oh yeah, that's what I feel like keeps me coming back to this show and enjoying. So number 5 is a stand-in for a series of shows we did, but that was the best games of all time. I loved that. That was cool. We did, I think, 3 different time periods, and then we did an overall ranking. And Kostya told me before the show that if I wanted to, I could put them all together. So that's what I did. I put them all together. And I guess I do number 4 as well.
Yeah. So you're talking about this series. Yeah, it was like a 4-part series. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely good stuff.
And then there's a lot of episodes I liked. There's so many, but anyways, I thought I liked this one we did called 50 Years Since 1972. And it was just fascinating to reflect on how the chess world has changed. And I think I proposed that topic, and I wasn't even, I had a couple things in mind of things that had changed, but it was just a really cool conversation and looking back in all the ways that especially chess culture has changed. Who's playing chess has changed. The hierarchy of chess, the introduction of the computer. So many things have happened, and it's still the exact same rules, but really in so many ways an entirely different game.
Yeah, that was a good one. I remember that one. Okay, my number 4 is the episode we did. I think we called it Universal Training Plans. Or Universal Training, maybe.
Yeah. I think is a Universal Training Program possible.
I remember that was David's title.
Right. So I like that one, or at least I would recommend it to people because that's kind of where, it all kicked off with our training program, basically. We kind of started discussing a lot of the key points there, and then it evolved into our site. Now our site is blossoming wonderfully, and we've got a ton of people, and they're universally gaining rating, which is awesome. So I just feel like that episode wasn't like the most fun episode, but definitely was, I think, a very good one to maybe learn about our philosophies to chess improvement, and probably would be pretty useful for people.
I think what was interesting too about that one is that I feel like David it was a legitimate question for David if the project itself was viable, in the sense that you could ask, doesn't all training have to be personal or personalized? And part of my belief in the program was no, no, people at the level of 1300 basically have the same problems. 1800, they have a different set of problems, but they're basically the same. Do some people have more or less weaknesses? Yes. But in terms of what they need to be doing, basically the same thing. Anyways, that's what I especially remember for that. And I think we've kind of convinced David, but maybe there's still lingering doubt about that in our program.
No, it definitely stands out as an occasion where Jesse was right about something. So it was definitely stand out in that way. My pick for number 4 is, again, very similar to yours, Kostya. It's kind of like the episode that just slightly precedes the universal training one, if you sort of count it backwards. And in a sense, we were sort of building, if you look at the list, we were building towards this training program topic over several videos. And you could watch in series. There's like a video where we talk the different like coaching methods with Eugene Perelstein, like bully, et cetera, right? And then we have 2 different parts, coaching, where we talk coaching philosophy, part 1 and part 2, right? Then we talk about the training program. Then we revisit the training program. We've got an episode, training program part 2, where we reflect on it after it's been running for a while. So, and there may even be 1 or 2 other episodes that fit into that progression, right? So we've got 5 or 6 along this line. And universal training, I mean, it's really cool because it led to this training program, which is just an amazing thing to come out of it. I really liked the coaching philosophy episode a little bit more, so that's one I put in as a stand-in for it. But I think it's been, a very important piece of what we've done. And the philosophy one, again, it's I just love talking about teaching with teachers. So on my longer list of 10 or 15 episodes, there's several of these that made it. Yeah. And I liked even just like behind the scenes when we would, it's just one of my favorite things to do, to talk about this stuff. And when we made like a little, a graphic that we could show on stream, like what is the dojo philosophy and stuff like that. I always think it's great when we touch back on that and make sure that we've got the overall thinking dialed in.
Right.
Cool. Fair enough. I'm just putting in the episode numbers because I think it'll make it easier for people to find them later. But yeah, David, it's on to you for number 3 as well.
Okay, cool. Okay, I don't know the episode number, but greatest chess players of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was a very fun episode. I think it stood out to some extent. And yeah, I had a lot of fun with it.
This was probably your most famous moment, David.
I love when at some point Jesse couldn't figure out who was left to put at the top of the list.
That's right, dude.
So
that's right.
That was kind of fun. Already around number 5, number 4, he's like, but who could even be in the top 3? So, I don't know. I got so much laughter, so many lulls out of that episode. So, number 3 for me.
Yeah, that was definitely a classic. Instant classic. Yeah. Also a great episode just in terms of the feedback we got, because obviously there's huge disagreement on the best players.
Well, yeah, I mean, anytime you can, even in our Discord, people can just randomly drop the name Philidor and everybody knows
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you needed a way to like know whether somebody's part of the dojo or not, you could just say something about Philidor and see if they catch it or not, right? I mean, it's just, yeah,
Very true.
they all know.
Yeah, maybe number one moment of all time, actually. All right, for me, number three was when I ranked the best modern chess books with special guest Andres Toth, chess coach Andres. I was also a streamer, and I know you guys weren't on that episode. It was just me and Andres, and it was just
That's
like
fine.
it's just
I
such
support you.
a it's such an enjoyable. I don't know why. I just have that episode is just like it just has a memory of just being very enjoyable, just like easy. You know, he read a lot of the books and he like had no tech issues. You know, he like had headphones. It's just like smooth sailing the whole way through.
Hey, you can enjoy an episode without us, but you don't have to throw shade on our mics.
Oh, and also actually, I checked the YouTube podcast, and I think that is the most highly viewed pod that we have in the playlist. So that's kind of special. But it was super fun. I mean, we have done a number of like interviews and collabs. Like I did one with Ramesh that people I think really enjoyed. Did one with Neil Bruce that is really popular. But it was fun to rank the best books. Also, because I missed the classic books because I remember I was sick for that episode. Although that was a good one regardless. So I wouldn't feel bad if you guys rank that one. But yeah, that was a fun one.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome.
I'm glad that you're putting up the episodes on there too. It kind of just timestamps it a little bit about where these episodes came from.
Yeah, I need to find
Okay,
this one.
so for me, next one, this is just was a fascinating topic to me, was that when we talked the chess boom, and it's something that it's so now I think a lot of chess players just take it for granted that this chess boom happened, but there's still like lingering questions about why it happened. You know, we can point to the obvious things like Queen's Gambit and people being stuck at home in the pandemic. I think we also address like maybe it's about chess becoming unstigmatized, definitely chess becoming not just a European thing, but it's this amazing thing that has happened to chess, to us. And to me, it's just like this thing I think about all the time. I'm like, why did it actually happen? Especially like when you imagine like all these kids and they could be playing video games and Grand Theft Auto or whatever it is, but no, they're playing chess. And it's a beautiful thing, of course, but it's still like, oh, it's just something that gives me wonder every time I think about it. So that to me stands out as just a really interesting thought piece of like what is going on. And then we kind of followed it up with a couple of other episodes because like chess.com said they were the reason of the chess boom. You know, in any case, we talked about it peripherally in a number of subsequent episodes as well. Okay, number two, I really enjoyed this one. Let me just say, in general, a lot of times, Kostya will be like, "We should have this guest on," and usually I'm like, "No guest. There's three people on this podcast, blah blah blah," and so I usually try to shoot that down. But my next two are actually both with guests, and this next one is the best books with Ben Johnson. And that was a cool episode for me because I feel like it was a way, let me edit that, is a way for us to talk amongst ourselves about what the best books were. And it was also like the episode I realized, oh, like this dude, Ben, knows much more than me about books, especially when it comes to books that aren't oriented towards GMs, right? Which is what most books should really be, of course, right? Too many books really are too fancy with, you know, either big time computer prep or deep analysis or something like that. So I thought that was really enlightening. And then it ended up, I think, definitely informed a lot of the choices that we made in the dojo of, which books come in and which ones come out. And that was
Yeah.
like this. It was a similar thing where we're ranking books and doing this little snake order tier list thing, which I like that we do. It's a fun way to talk about stuff.
Right. No, that definitely became, I feel like, kind of our niche. It was I don't know. I think that's really when we found our stride, is when we started ranking stuff, because
That's what you meant about like we finally found our way.
I
I was
think
curious
so.
when you thought it happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like it's not like it's like the only thing we're good for, but I just I don't know. I think that's when things really kind of took off, because it's just like allowed us to give very clear perspectives, and then people also enjoy ranking stuff. And these things are still a lot of these things are still, very much up for debate, like especially like the best books and things like that are very, very, very subjective. And I don't know, for me, they were definitely the most fun episodes. So my number 2 is the top 10 best players that we ranked. So David's number 3, same episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is where it kind of kicked it off, kicked off the golden age of Dojo Talks. We started with ranking the greatest chess players, and we ranked the greatest games of all time. We then ranked the best players to not become world champions. That was a huge episode that then sparked another controversy, which caused us to do another episodes discussing who we're actually considering as, the real world champions. It was just also quite controversial. But I just felt like those episodes were fun, because we also got a ton of like chess history and chess culture in there, which I think is cool, especially for like newer fans that don't know a lot about the history and culture of the game and like all the crazy like stories and dramas and sagas of the past. I think it was kind of cool to flesh out a lot of that stuff once again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, one nice thing that happens sometimes in Dojo Talks is sort of story time, right? Somebody tells a little story that they know about Alyechin or about a tournament that one of us played in, and, answering somebody's question about etiquette, talking about when somebody put potato chips on your board or whatever. It's fun when all the little stories come out. It's really nice.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's my number 2.
Okay. Mine, if I'm not mistaken, is the best games of all time.
And we finally share one, David. Share one.
Yeah. Best games of all
You can
time.
just copy it.
Oh, yeah, I could have done that. Dang, with the tech tips. Thank you.
Yeah. Over GM to your help.
Yeah. So, it's funny because I would slightly disagree with Kostya about how great ranking episodes are, and yet here I'm putting ranking episodes at number 2 and number 3. So, what would it even mean for me to disagree? but I think that overall, my favorite format for a Dojo Talk episode, for something to rewatch later, for something to really recommend to others to go back and watch, is something that gets really deep on a topic, right? Like Dojo Talks cheating, or Dojo Talks coaching philosophy, or Dojo Talks FIDE, or national championships, or something like that. Some like really eternal kind of topics. And like Jesse said at the top of the show, I really also like when it sometimes veers into some politics and things like that. The Karyakin ban. What do we think of that? Should players or federations be punished for geopolitical events? I love all that stuff. But somehow, despite that sort of being my general thought, most of those kind of episodes ended up like between 6th and 10th place for me. And when I really just took like my emotional touchstones, this was one of them. Best games of all time. I mean, honestly, if we were ranking them individually, the three, uh, my three favorites are obviously the ones split by time, not the overall one at the end when we're rediscussing games we've already seen, right?
Right.
But the first three episodes of that, I mean, I would have put them for sure 2, 3, 4. I mean, I did before we sort of
Oh, okay.
combined it. I love them, and in those episodes, you guys showed me a couple games that I didn't know. And they're just, I mean, ultimately the greatest chess games of all time is like, kind of the reason I'm into chess. So they sort of take the cake, even over geopolitical stuff. And yeah, just spending all that time talking with you, looking at the games, it's just too much of a pleasure. So there it is, number two, maybe even number one. I don't know. There it is, number two. Oh, I guess I'm at number one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we are allowed to change our minds at the end too. So
Yeah, we could change our minds at the end. I could move this up to number one. It's very close. This one is uh and obviously I love doing Dojo Talks with you guys. This is an episode which you guys might not have seen or know much about. But it's one that I did with Noel Studer as guest. And I just I emotionally I loved it. I had a great time doing that episode and like listening to everything he had to say. And I would just say I think it's like a topic that isn't discussed a whole lot. So I also another thing that I think is like a bonus for an episode of ours often is if we talk about something that's interesting but not discussed all the time, right? So if we do Dojo Talks cheating, obviously it's a big topic and hopefully we have good thoughts on it. But Dojo Talks professionalism, I mean, like the idea that, if you want to be a real professional, it would be a good idea to hire a manager or something. This is the kind of stuff that nobody ever talks about, really. So I found it really, really enlightening. It's an episode where I maybe learned the most of any episode that I've done or listened to.
Okay, cool.
So.
Dang, I can't believe we're not in your favorite episode.
Yeah, what's going on, David? What is this, buddy? You go cheat on us
I
with
love
some
you
other
guys,
lady and then you put it at the top? Come on.
And I apologize for putting one in third place. You know what?
Yeah.
Well, okay. I mean, my number one pick, was the best games of all time. Mainly for the reasons that David, so eloquently laid out. It was a great episode, and for me, this is, I think, we're really just kind of peaked with the podcast. Because best games of all time, I mean, I think that's something that like everyone is just interested in, and there's no clear answers. But I did think we actually did come up with like a pretty good list. If you just combined all the games we put together, I think we had a very like nice list to study. And yeah, I forget which one was my favorite, but there was one where we were just like, we're arguing the whole time. I think it was either part 3 or part 4. I think it was part 3, but we couldn't agree on like how much of the games we wanted to show throughout the podcast, like for the YouTube audience. And so we ended up showing like half the games and the other half, like we kind of showed them, but they were just...
I was yelling at them the whole time. I was like, they can't see the game.
Yeah.
You understand? They can't see the game. And David was like, no, I got to see it, man. I got to see it.
In a sense, it was also our most busted episode by that sense, right? Because it's like it's an episode where it's not clearly a podcast or a show, and we want to do similar episodes about our own games, but we're like, but those won't be part of Dojo Talks. They'll be their own thing because we need the board. So this is maybe our best or most broken episode.
Yeah, it was scuffed, but no, great series, and I think that's definitely. Yeah, I think, I don't know, that's one that could be kind of representative of Dojo Talks as a whole. But I do hear what David said, the other side of our thing is that we are kind of doing a lot of like chess politic talks, especially lately, actually, our last we've done quite a few in recent times, in the last couple of months, and I think those actually have been very much appreciated by the chess world from what I hear. So I think we should definitely keep doing those as well.
Cool. This one may be a little bit emotional or whatever, memory based, but I think when we first started, it wasn't clear exactly what we were going to do. And I look back and it was kind of what my memory was, which in the first couple episodes, it was like, we were bouncing around a little bit. And it wasn't clear that we were doing something substantive. And then, so this episode was the first one, I think it's episode 4, where I felt like, oh, we're doing something substantive. And it was called 6 Ways to Train with Eugene Perelstein.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things, like all the themes, first of all, in that talk, we end up revisiting in a variety of ways, ends up informing the Dojo Training Program. But again, the main thing there was like, we had a guest on who was cool and could talk to us about, like, because Eugene has had the remarkable privilege of having studied with a wide variety of famous trainers and stuff. So it then, just gave us a cool way of diving into these different ways of training. And it was like the first time I'm like, okay, we are talking about something substantive, and this has some real meat on the bones. This is something we can keep chewing on. And so that was the episode where like, we can just keep talking about this. And in some ways we have. A lot of the different things we end up talking about with chess training and so on have everything to do with that kind of conversation that started with Eugene at the beginning.
That was a classic. And yeah, that was a throwback to our old format. If you guys remember, we used to have the pointer. We'd have a list of topics on the screen and a finger that would point.
Yeah.
Real classic.
And right. And that was inspired by like sports shows, because at the beginning, it was like, people were jumping all over the place instead of being focused, because it's almost like we didn't understand that, sure, of course you can talk for an hour about any given chess topic. And so we were bouncing around, and this was just like, all right, we're going to go 6 ways to train. We're going to go pop, 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 and get on through it.
10 minutes each.
Yeah. So, I think I'm really happy we did this, especially because, right, first of all, we have some cool episodes, and seeing what you guys thought was best. A lot of these stuff you guys had were still in, like, made a big list where I just brainstormed which ones were my favorite, and definitely a lot of you guys' ones were on there. Of course, David's first pick is always weird. It's just like purposely wrong, and he likes to do that to us. Fine, whatever.
It's classic.
I try very hard to be right, but this is very, very like taste-based by me. It doesn't even make sense to me, my list today. But Philidor made sense.
Yeah. Okay, did you guys have like a worst episode in mind?
Well, by the way, I was the one originally when we came up with this podcast. I was thinking, well, we should do like the most memorable, the worst. And then when I was going through, I was like, I don't remember one being especially bad. I remembered my face like falling to the floor when David said that Philidor was the greatest player of all time. In terms of like low moments in my life, that's one of them. But the whole episode itself was one of the best. So it was. I didn't have particularly bad memories about any given episode.
I remember one. I forget. I couldn't figure out which episode this was, but there was one we did that was pretty bad. Like, it was just clearly our like worst. Is because we, for whatever reason, we hadn't done one in a couple of weeks, and I think we hadn't even spoken in a couple of weeks. So it was like the first time, we didn't even have like a pre-show meeting or anything. We were just like 10 minutes, like, oh hey, how's it going? And then we just like started to do the podcast. I don't remember what topic it was, but yeah, there was some comments on it that was like, did these guys even know each other? Like, I was like, oh yeah. That was, so since that one, I was like, that's always been, I tried to learn from that episode is like, all right, make sure the audience understands that you know they know each other. It was a very good piece of feedback. But yeah, I don't remember which one that was. But yeah, it wasn't a good one, so don't listen to it.
But Jesse and I should to take the same lessons to heart as you did.
Yeah, we should. Right. We should learn from it for sure.
I remember once or twice some comments on episodes where it was like, man, like these guys seem to like hate each other or something like that. And someone's like, no, they're friends. They're just they're comfortable like calling each other idiots or disagreeing or whatever.
Right. Yeah, those I don't mind. Yeah.
Well, the airing of grievances, dude, that one got pretty hot.
Yeah.
That one got hot,
Yeah.
That was a good one. I'm remembering now we also fought a lot during one of the Ding Nepo World Championship podcasts. I remember we were fighting about the couch.
That's right. What does Ding owe everybody?
Yeah. That was good. Okay, so
I think Jesse said his most offensive moment. I think probably the most egregiously offensive moment in any episode for me was when Jesse said that he would feel no compunction about taking a spot on the Olympiad team from somebody in Bermuda. And he just seemed to be a man without any like moral system of any kind, just like I do what I like, and I was just like, there was no way left to argue anymore with somebody who doesn't have any system of beliefs.
I remember that one. Yeah, actually, David was just like in straight shock.
Yeah. Like ready to, yeah. I mean, I love arguing, as you guys have noticed. And I was like, at some point, I was like, okay, I give up.
Yeah, that was really funny.
Did you recently get mated? Well, it's time to join the Chess Dojo Training Program. Or maybe you just enjoy this fine content. Give us some money on the Patreon. I need to keep the lights on, and with inflation, it's really hard for Kostya to be buying that avocado toast.
Alrighty, so that's episode 100. We want to talk a little bit about the future. Of course, we want to keep doing this show. We actually have a lot more topics that we already have been meaning to do, but just haven't gotten around to yet. But we want to talk about this new FIDE rating thing. They're going to be increasing all the ratings, so like possibly like new rating changes coming in is interesting. There's this new like cheating saga with Kramnik. There's this drama with the FIDE circuit and the rating spot, whether they're doing all right with that. We have actually a couple more shows, like a couple more ranking shows we still need to do as well. And then we got topics from the Ben Johnson book, Perpetual Chess Improvement, that are going to be revisiting on chess improvement. And
I want to do Can Neil Bruce make master? I've been vetoed on that 100,000 times, but I want to still do it.
There's nothing to prevent you from repeatedly asking us about it.
Yeah, Jesse wants another episode in the Dojo Talks aging saga.
Yeah. I'll say one other cool thing that's happened in some episodes that I like, which is when we air our grievances or our internal discussions. I like the openness that there is in the dojo where we're where we talk about just whatever, right? Like we've had several episodes of like, basically talking about what the dojo's up to, but we've had episodes with like the airing of the grievances. We had the topic about monetization. We had the subtopic, are we sellouts?
That was the main title of one of our episodes. It's just, are we sellouts?
Okay.
Yeah,
I thought that was
funny.
one of the subtopics of the episode.
No, it was a call. Are we sellouts? Yeah,
the whole one. Yeah. So I love that we do that, and I hope you guys remain comfortable doing that kind of stuff as it comes up.
And I'll say too, I think people need to send us money on Patreon. That's what they need to do to keep these talks going. And One cool thing, actually, the airing of grievances came out of a question on Patreon, and I would love to see more of those. First, what do people want us to talk about? And might even be cool. I don't know if we could even have like a call in someday, where people like got their questions, or maybe they've got them all lined up and we don't know what they are in advance. We just get boom, 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 with the questions. That could be fun as well. Kind of an ask anything moment.
Yeah, actually, that's a good reminder. Yeah, so the Patreon, we still do accept questions from there. I'll probably put up a new post this month, so any Patreon supporters can submit questions, and then we'll try to answer them on the show. We might even dedicate a whole episode to one if it's a really good question. But yeah, that is available. Yeah, actually, I do like the ones where we approach some topics. I feel like people appreciate, like we did one called "Is Chess.com Evil?" and then we have people message us from Chess.com and be like, "Hey, thanks, for being fair in this episode. We really appreciate it." So I feel like we are able to at least approach these serious topics with some degree of fairness. But yeah, plenty more episodes to come. We'll keep trying to do one per week as we can. But I like that we made it to 100. That's solid. It's a good base.
Yeah. And you think we're going to make it to 200?
Yeah, actually, I think the first 100 is harder than the second.
Mm-hmm.
I think it really is. But okay, that'll do it for the show. Thanks for listening, everybody. Catch you guys next time. Take care.